Call the planning and zoning meeting to order. Everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a new member, so we need the oath. For a new member?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I don't have it.
Is there a piece of paper in front of you there,
Okay.
Mr. Major?
Just read it. Sir, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Now you stand, raise my right hand. I, Marcus Major, do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas and faithfully discharge my duties with love in Worth County, so help me God.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, roll call. Mark Denny.
Here.
Alan Stork.
Here.
Jane Bailey.
Here.
Marcus Major.
Yes, here.
Will Smith is absent. Rocky Hempel.
Here.
Robert Owens.
Here.
Tom Dials.
Here.
Jeff Spink.
Here.
And I'm present. Steve Rosenthal. We have 9 members present tonight. Do I have a motion on last month's minutes? May's minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Jaden?
I'll second it.
Robert? Second.
Tom.
Have a motion on the... Oh, it was Tom?
It was Tom.
Speak up.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm just naturally shy.
I know, and I don't do it all that well. So. Anyway, have a motion on the floor with a second to approve the minutes for May as written. Any further discussion?
I had just one correction on DEV 22042. It said the motion to approve passed 8-1, but then it mentioned Commissioner Bailey and Commissioner Owens voted no. So I don't know if it should be 8-2 or it was 8-1. I don't remember.
Stephanie's correcting that. I already mentioned it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah,
That was my only.
yeah, that was, I got that, and I told Stephanie, and I think she's correcting that already. So, any other discussion?
Good.
A roll call vote. Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus, you're going to abstain because you weren't here. And Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens.
Yes.
Tom Dials.
Here.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 8-0. All right. Secretary's report. Crystal.
I'm sorry, we're having a technical difficulty.
Okay.
Chairman, this all worked this afternoon. I was on the phone with Mr. Malbrough. He's trying to get it fixed for us.
Okay.
This evening, obviously, we welcomed a new planning commissioner, which we are excited to have Mr. Major on our planning commission. We have 2 items on our regular agenda. We have 2 items on our consent agenda, and he's taken control. And 4 items on the regular agenda. One of those is, of course, something that we've not ever heard before. That is the revocation, potentially, of an existing special use permit. That is the last item on here. We do have several people here who are wishing to speak. Chairman, you will, of course, lead this meeting. We'll limit it to 3 minutes per person. Hopefully we'll have time for everyone.
We're going to do the applicant 15 minutes and anybody else 3 minutes, and we're
Yes,
going
that's
to
the-
adhere strictly to those time limits.
Yes.
So we're
that is
not
the
here all
desire of the
night.
commission. With that, I have nothing else.
Okay. Any decorations, anyone? I'll take a motion on the agenda. 2 items on the consent agenda are approved as soon as we approve the agenda.
So moved.
Rocky moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Steve.
Okay. This time it is Robert. I have a motion on the floor with a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus Meyer.
Major.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens,
Yes.
Tom Dials,
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. All right, we hear our first case, and that is, I'll make sure we're on the same page here.
I think it's 8-0, because, isn't it 8-0? Because
Oh, it's 8-0, yeah. Yeah, I can't vote. Okay.
Good call, Rocky.
I must page.
Got to elect him parliamentarian.
Okay, Leavenworth County Planning and Zoning Commission will now hear case number DEV 22-038 and 039, preliminary and final plat for J.A. Trader as outlined in the posted agenda. This is not a public hearing item. Staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. As mentioned, you are considering a subdivision application for a two-lot subdivision. The property is located at 20174 Santa Fe Trail. I'm sorry I don't have it up there for you. Hopefully soon we can get that resolved. The property in question has an existing house, some accessory buildings, and a pond. They're wanting to divide it into two separate lots. The first lot would be approximately 18.74 acres in size. It would retain the existing pond on that lot. This lot would have two frontages. Both frontages would meet the minimum frontage requirements for both sides. The second lot in question would actually keep the house and the accessory structure. That would be approximately 4.67 acres in size. This property is zoned rural residential 2.5, so it will have to meet the minimum standards for that zoning district. The reason why it is not on the consent agenda is because it does have some 45-degree angles at the top corners of the second lot due to the pond and an existing septic system. So they are requesting an exception for that irregular lot line adjustment. Staff is generally in support. Otherwise, it meets all other requirements of the subdivision regulations. The applicant is in attendance, and if you have any questions for staff, please let me know.
Okay. Any questions of staff, anyone? Will the applicant please come forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. Staff handled that report very well. It does have some irregular shapes in there due to a septic and lateral line issue that occurred after the original plating. We did submit a couple different layouts, and this was the one of choice between our meetings with staff that was supported. So this is the one that came through. Here to answer any questions.
Any questions, the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
Are there any questions or comments, Commissioners, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed preliminary and final plat as outlined in case DEV 22-038-039 be approved, that the findings as set forth in the staff report and adopted by the Planning Commission and substantiated by the facts, testimony, and evidence presented be adopted by this board, and that the conditions set forth in staff report be made part of this preliminary and final plat.
You have a second?
Second.
Ellen seconded. I have a motion on the floor with a second to approve case number DEV 22-038 and 039. Is there any further discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus Major.
Yes.
Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens.
Yes.
Tom Dials.
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than June 22nd, 2022 meeting. The commission agenda is posted in the Leavenworth County website and is available for public viewing. Leavenworth County Planning Commission will now hear case DEV 22-030, special use permit for Hidden Valley, as outlined in the posted agenda. It does require a public hearing. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, this is case number DEV-22-030. This is a request for Hidden Valley Retreat. Mr. and Mrs. Wood have an existing special use permit for Hidden Valley. It is up in the northern portion of the county. They operate a seasonal business where they do treehouse camping. It's a very unique business. They have been in operation for over 5 years now. They've been quite successful. They are looking to expand their business. They're wanting to add 9 additional camping sites, which is why they're before you today. Other than that, their special use permit is not changing. They're not adding events or anything of that nature. They're just simply seeking to request to add 9 additional, which they had originally presented 5 years ago. They knew that they were going to want to expand to this. Mr. and Mrs. Wood are here and will answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of staff?
Yes, I have one question. It's on number 9, the staff recommended conditions. An engineered system shall be required. What does an engineered system consist of?
It's designed by an engineer, and it's designed so that it can handle the amount, not necessarily the amount of waste that's being generated, but the use of the system, because it's not like a typical household system where you would see typical, daily use. Because this is seasonal, it fluctuates. So an engineer designs it to make sure that it will continue to operate appropriately, and they have an existing system.
Okay.
That is a typical condition that we see on uses such as
Okay,
this.
thank you. Thank you,
Well,
Staff.
all our septics are engineered systems, right? Now? All our septic,
No,
they're not?
no, sir.
I thought they all had to be engineered systems, but designed by an engineer.
If they're on an acre, they have to be designed by an engineer, or if they do not pass a typical soil profile or a PERC test, if they have limiting factors, then it needs to be designed by an engineer. But assuming it meet the sanitary code, then no, it can be just a typical standard system.
Okay. All right. Learn something new every day. Any other questions of staff before we move on? Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. The applicant can have up to 15 minutes, and anybody else will going to be limited to 3 minutes per person. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. Will the applicant please come forward?
Greetings. Thank you. I'm Stan Wood. Thanks you for considering our proposal. I do want to make a couple corrections at the outset in terms of the numbers. We're requesting in the details of the special use permit only 7 additional guest units to add to our current 5. And so that would bring the total number up to 12, which is what is specified in the special use permit.
Okay,
So
it does say 12 cabins.
One of those units is currently occupied by as manager's quarters, which is myself and my wife. So I do want to make that clear at the outset. Basically, the special use permit here is a continuation of our vision that we had 5 years ago to provide a peaceful destination for people to come get away from their everyday stresses of life. We believe the setting there in North Lebanon County in the Glacial Hills area is exceptionally beautiful, and our guests have affirmed that, and we currently have more demand than we have units to fill those demands, especially on the weekends. So we've outlined the changes that we want to make here. We want to convert our garage into a gathering area for when we have groups there. We're not groups there that are renting the facilities overnight, so we're not going to have outside groups come in addition to the guests that could stay overnight. Just when groups come, they can get together in a common place. We don't have a place currently large enough for them to gather. So that's one of the things on the agenda with some a little bit of expansion of that building. At some point, we'll want a small welcome center by the entrance. We think we'll get large enough that it'll be helpful for our guests to have a place to stop when they get there and kind of get their bearings. And we anticipate adding that at some point. So we currently have an engineered septic system, which was brought up as a condition of our last special use permit. We're going to be splitting the units into 3 separate zones from a septic standpoint and creating 2 additional septic systems that house that take care of the wastewater for the additional units in those particular areas that we have planned. So we've, in the past 5 years, we've had hundreds of guest stays come in each unit, definitely thousands of guest nights, and with a lot of positive feedback and a lot of, people, I guess I would say, are discovering, the beauty of North Leavenworth County and really appreciate the ability to get away and have a respite from their daily lives. So that's really our vision. Some other notable things that have happened is one of our units, Graham's Treehouse, has been selected as the #1 coolest destination in Kansas by a prominent travel site, and we've been selected on Airbnb as a feature destination. We have a significant percentage of return guests that have started coming back on sometimes multiple times a year, sometimes an annual basis, and so that's really a nice compliment to the beauty of the area, I think, and the retreat. So we support and encourage all our guests and direct them to local establishments and businesses and tourist attractions in the area when they want to get out and away from the retreat. So that's really all I had to say. Appreciate your consideration. I'm open for any questions at this point.
Okay. There's on staff recommendations. There's 13 requirements. We usually would, if our screen was working and everything, you would see them on the board. Have you had a chance to review all those 13 requirements?
Yes, I have. And I agree to those, yes.
Okay, and you're okay with all of them?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? No?
Well, there's on number 7, if we look at that as staff recommended conditions, we got 10 campsites. We need to change that to 12, I believe. Is that correct? You have 5, and we're asking for 7 more?
The business shall be limited to 12 cabins and 1 campsite, which 12 is the total number.
Yes. Number 6.
I think staff in the narrative that was submitted, it stated that, I think this is where the confusion came from. Additional 8 luxury tree house cabins and rental sites, and then converting the garage. I think that's where we came to the 9. I see now where but 12 is the number, correct?
Yes.
The max. So.
Right.
Okay, so we just need to change that in the recommendations.
The condition is 12.
Okay.
That's what he's.
Okay.
Are you in the right one? Because you said 7 and it's
Well, they're adding 7 more cabins, right? You have 5 and you're adding 7 more?
That is correct.
Okay. The business shall be limited.
I'm not sure you're in the wrong
Okay,
one.
am I on the wrong one? Okay. That's 13.
Yeah.
And we back up 1 page. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just double checking there.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant?
I may have a question of the applicant, but Crystal, since there's no time limit on these, right?
Okay, we're on the right one, right?
That he's good to go for however long.
No, that ain't it.
Is that correct?
That is partially correct. Assuming that that the business operates under the terms of the special use permit that are agreed upon and voted on by the Board of County Commissioners.
They should
No
have check
expansion.
marks on it.
So there's my question.
That's too far
I
back.
may have to ask Mr. Wood this. So if he wants to go up to 13, whenever, how does that work?
He would apply for a new special use
So he
permit.
would have to come back.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing it.
So then my question to you, Mr. Wood, is do you see in the foreseeable future, next 5 to 10 years, that you would have more than 12?
I really think 12 is all we can bite off at this point, and so I don't foresee that happening to continue.
Right here.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome.
We will now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in favor of this request. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this request? We'll now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in opposition to this request. In opposition. Is there any additional information to be presented? Oh.
I'm James Berry. I live at 34872 North 187th Street. I'm outside the mailing zone for getting a letter asking about this Hidden Valley Resort. My initial opinion on it 5 years ago when this all started was not a big deal. 3 cabins, 4 cabins, but I don't think they stuck to that number as of yet because I believe they have 5. So I don't know where they'll stop at. I bought my house 25 years ago out there and I paid good money for it out there because it was quiet and peaceful. I didn't buy a house to have a resort built that we don't know how big it'll go. 12 is his number right now because financially he probably can't go over that. I don't know the man, don't care. But I know that it could stop at 40. We don't know. All he's got to do is come back and ask you guys for more. I built my house, and they told me when I wanted to build a shop that I was going to put a separate septic system in for it because it was an exterior building. Couldn't tie on to my septic system because I wanted to put a kitchenette for when I had my buddies over and we had football parties out in my shop. That's what we do. Well, couldn't do that. Didn't own enough ground. Okay. You built separate tree houses. They're considered homes because they got kitchenettes and bathrooms in them. But we're not requiring him to put in a separate system for each one of those. There's part of my contention. The water board says he doesn't have to have a separate meter for every one of them because of some grandfathered-in clause in their policy. But I think when we start inviting, he says there's been hundreds of people out there. Well, if you add this many more, that means the number goes up to thousands. I don't want to have thousands of people out in my area that don't know where boundaries and lines and property boundaries end and begin at. I shouldn't have to tell them that every weekend when they're in the wrong place. They come out there, they want to walk on a windy, hilly road. That's not a good place to start with. They want to walk on trails. Well, then let's get an ambulance service sitting at his house because they're going to run into wildlife. Raccoons that have distemper, snakes. We got rattlesnakes, copperheads. They're all over out there. I hunt out there, I know. The neighbors that probably care, I don't know if they're all here or not. He doesn't neighbor my property, but I go out and let my dogs out at 11 o'clock at night do their business, and I can look over and see the lights in his tree houses, so I know they're not that far. We shoot guns out there. That was never brought up before. But I don't want a bunch of city dwellers coming out there to spend the weekends, thousands of them, and they start calling 911 because they heard a gunshot. Well, we shoot guns out in the country. That's what we do. I can go down to Cabela's and buy tannerite and blow stumps up out in my yard. How are they going to feel about that when that loud noise goes off? I just think there should have been a different place to have built a resort if you think you want a resort. I know, 3 or 4 tree houses doesn't sound like a lot, but now we're going to quadruple that number. I don't know where it stops. I'm never going to agree to liken it. I think his entrances are in hazardous locations to get in and out of either where I've been told they're going to build a house, either side where his winery is going to eventually be at. Those are all on blind hills. If you drive out there, you can see them when you drive out. You can't see it on a map. But people drive 50 mile an hour on that road, and they pop over a hill, and they're at his driveway. Well, you go right over that hill, and there's going to be another driveway. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't like it. But if you allow it, I hope people do this in your neighborhood one day, because it's not right. We bought our houses out in the country for the peace and solitude. I didn't want to build next to a resort. There wasn't one there. Wasn't nowhere near there. It'd be like me going out and building a house out in the Colorado Rockies, and then all of a sudden you build a ski resort next door to my home.
Sir, your time is up.
I know.
Thank you, though. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
The public?
one more.
I'd like to speak in favor, please.
Okay, we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Sharon Stein. My husband, Chuck, and I live at 18968 Logan Road in Leavenworth, Kansas. We've been out in the Kickapoo area, lived there for over 50 years. We are the next door neighbors, right on top of Hidden Valley. As a matter of fact, after they were there a few years, we sold them acreage to add on to their property, which included the 3 barns that we used to own, which put us right in the backyard of the resort. I can say, honestly, my husband and I are up in age and our health. We are home all the time. We have never, ever seen anybody, all the years they've been there, any of their guests, ever, because they don't. There is a buffer of woods that separates all the neighbors, including us. We have never heard one sound ever over there. Of all the years that we've lived out there, they are probably one of the most conscientious neighbors we have ever had, caring about the neighborhood, improving the neighborhood, and about their neighbors all around. It's been a pleasure to get to know the woods. It's been a pleasure to have it over there. You do not see anything. We're right on top of them. You do not see any of the tree houses. You do not see anything over there that's going on because of the way they run it. And like I said, it's been a pleasure. Everything, they're so conscientious. If they do anything, they recently had approved their driveway, put a driveway in for what they're going to be doing, some of the stuff, and they call us every time that they go to do something and to let us know. They don't have to do that, but they do, because they care about the neighbors and they care about the neighborhood. And it's been a pleasure to get to know them and to have them next door as a neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Is there any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners?
A couple of questions for clarification, Crystal. In conditions 8 and 9, you talk about waste generation will meet engineered septic system requirements. That would address the issue of if a separate septic system is required for each individual dwelling.
Yes,
so that would counter that. And then this appears in the other campground too. Light generated from proposed business shall be limited to 0.00 foot candles. Can you tell me what that means? Because ambient start light is 0.01.
So the business itself cannot be projecting light onto its property. So you are correct, the ambient lighting would be above that. However, they cannot position any lighting so that it would be contributing to lighting.
So this is night lighting along an access road. It's not if he says he can see light from when somebody turns the lights on inside a cabin, that's permissible.
Correct, yes.
Okay. I have it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there any formal complaints? I didn't see any in the staff report.
We have never received any, sir.
Any other comments or questions?
This is basically in my backyard as well, and I didn't even know the place was there until my wife asked to go there, and we can't seem to get a reservation. So, yeah, we actually had to go look for it because we didn't know where it was. So they're right in District 1, and I don't think half my neighbors even know they're there. So,
Any other questions or comments, or entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed special use permit as outlined in case DEV 20-030 be approved, that the findings on the golden factors as set forth in the staff report as adopted by the Planning Commission and as substantiated by the facts, testimony, and evidence presented be adopted by this board, and that the conditions set forth in the staff report be made part of this special use permit.
Second.
Tom? I have a motion on the floor with a second to approve case number DEV 22-030 special use permit for Hidden Valley with staff recommendations 1 to 13. Is there any further discussion? A roll call vote. Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus Major.
Yes.
Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens.
yes.
Tom Dials.
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than June 29th, 2022 at 9 a.m. the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Doesn't have that other paragraph, don't I have to say that too? About protest petition?
Did you mention the protest petition at the beginning of the meeting?
No, it's when I read after the end. It's on this next one, so I'll just read it off of that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Kansas law allows for a petition protesting the decision of the Planning Commission to be filed. That petition must be filed within 14 days, the date of the hearing. Additional information on the filing of the protest petitions can be obtained in the Office of Planning and Zoning. Good luck to you, sir, and June 29th at 9 a.m. right here, same place. Board of County Commissioners will make the final decision. Okay, Leavenworth County Planning Commission will now consider case number DEV 22-054, special use permit for Enchanted Oaks Campground as outlined in the posted agenda. Does require a public hearing. Staff report.
All right, Commissioners, before you is a special use permit for another campground. This one is different from the previous one. It's more of a primitive campground. The property in question is located at 15699 Kansas Avenue. It's really close to the intersection of Kansas and 158th Street. The property in question is 6.3 acres in size. It is zoned rural residential 2.5, which does require a special use permit for a campground in that zoning district. The existing buildings on site is a single-family house with one accessory structure. There is an existing pond, and there is currently a gravel parking lot on the site. The applicant had opened the Enchanted Oaks Campground, I believe it was about 2016. He made contact with the county at that time to determine he wouldn't need a special use permit due to the nature of the business. However, since then, it was determined that due to how he's booking these campgrounds, he would need to come in and get the special use permit. We contacted him. He immediately got in contact with us, and he has submitted this application, which is reflected in the memo from our code enforcement officer. The campground in question, as mentioned, is more of a primitive campground, think tents, rather than tree houses in this one. He indicated on his narrative that there are 10 campsites on the property. However, he typically has 8 working at any given time. It is open year-round. However, he does see most of his business during warmer months rather than the colder months. Due to the nature of campgrounds, this would be accessible 24 hours a day. However, he does say most of the traffic generated from this business happens between about 8 and 7 p.m. During the day. As mentioned, there is an existing parking lot on this site. It's about 15 spaces, so from staff's calculation, that should provide most of the parking needed for the existing sites on the property. It does have an existing sign. Images were provided in his narrative. In regards to the sanitation on the site, the applicant has proposed composting toilets. We did reach out to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, which is reflected in an email from a Mr. Vane from April 27th. Per staff's recommendation, he would need to comply with the requirements set forth in that email if this is something that you guys choose to approve. That was outlined in staff recommendation, condition number 3. Other than that, staff is recommending denial because, of course, this doesn't quite conform to the comprehensive plan future land use map. It's designated as residential, not commercial, so that is staff's recommendation. The applicant is in attendance, so if you have questions, he is here to answer them as well as myself.
Any questions of staff?
Because your only concern for denial is the fact that it doesn't meet the long-range plan?
There is concern over the sanitation system, which is why we put the condition in there that he would have to meet the KDHE requirements in order for you guys, for staff recommended approval. But we do think if he does meet that condition, it would mitigate that impact.
What would something like that, in addition to, what would something like that cost? I mean, is that a big burden to do something like that, to add that additional?
You mean for the toilets?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if KDHEs, we're going to require it. I think it's something that has to be here.
Yeah.
Why all of a sudden are we making them get a SUP when they've been in business since forever? I mean, all of a sudden we decided they have to have this, and why did we decide this?
I believe the determination was back in 2016 when initial contact was made that it was being open to friends and family, which typically we do not require a special use permit. However, once you start advertising it as a business and you're getting money for it, that obviously...
That changes things. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. We are limiting the applicant to 15 minutes, and anybody to speak for or against the item will have 3 minutes, strictly adhered to. Public comment portion of this hearing is now open. Will the applicant please come forward?
Thank you for your consideration today, and thank you for the report. It was perfectly accurate.
Your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Darrell Ray. I live at 15699 Kansas Avenue, and out of Baser. I've lived here for 25 years. I've lived in Leavenworth for 35 years. And I did start the business 5 years ago, and as you'll see by the evidence we submitted, we get regular 5-star ratings from almost anybody that comes at our site. We're very different from my competition over here. We're not really competitors because I only allow tents or very small RVs on my property. I'm a big camper. I'm a hiker, and I enjoy that. I enjoy giving people in the local metro area a place to come that's secluded and quiet. And I try to be a very good neighbor to my neighbors and keep things quiet as possible and give a wildlife kind of environment for people. I've let all the trees and things grow very big around the property, so it's really quite private and quiet for my campers. We have 10 campsites, but we only allow really about 8 to be used at any given time. Right now, I've got 2 closed because of all this rain, and I got one that I'm trying to repair because of damage just done by all the weather we've had. I'm not sure if there's anything else I can say.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I've never done this before, so I'm...
Okay. On the staff recommendations, there's How many of them is there?
13.
There's 13 recommendations. Have you seen them?
Oh, yeah. Right. Gone over
Okay,
them.
you understand them? Have any questions?
Nope.
You understand, which one was this?
10.
Number 10. Yeah, number 10 with the KDHE requirement.
Right. We have a current system that we've been using for years. Each campsite gets their own porta potty, and it goes into a bag like you would do your child's diaper, or it goes into a bag like if you were a person that wore Depends, or you clean up after your dog. Goes into a bag, and then that goes into the trash. So that's the kind of system we've been using so far. We've talked about this. I looked at what the KDHE said. I'm not sure where they stand on that. It seems cleaner than any state park I've been to recently, because I clean every toilet every time it's brought back to me from the campsite. So we have 100% sanitation on. You go to a state park and go to the bathroom. It's not been cleaned in a day, 2, or a week sometimes. So we're very careful, especially in COVID. We've been super careful about cleanliness. Because a lot of people come to camp at us because they want to get out, but they don't want to be with any other human beings and catch COVID.
Unfortunately, Kansas Department of Health and Welfare doesn't agree with that. So,
well, I don't know what they're going to require, but I'm happy to do whatever that requires, and we've talked about it.
The requirement, Dr. Ray, is that either the waste be hauled off by a licensed hauler, which we have several of them in the counties,
right,
or for a septic system to be installed.
And I'm happy.
The waste in the trash is not.
I'm happy to do that. Have a commercial system. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that's what we've been using, and I hadn't gotten a ruling as to whether that was totally forbidden by the KDHE or not. So
well, apparently so.
Okay, it is.
Well, okay. Anyway. All right. Any other questions of the applicant?
Dr. Ray, you mentioned in your application that you're carrying $1 million umbrella
I do.
coverage.
Yeah.
Is that umbrella coverage linked to your personal homeowner policy, or is it a commercial umbrella?
Two things. I take my bookings through a website that provides the $1 million insurance, and then I have another $1 million insurance umbrella policy on my on the property, and it's an umbrella policy that I acquired. I ran my own business for years, so I just continued that.
It's a
same.
business umbrella. It's a commercial umbrella policy. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Right.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Yes. You stated that you have tent-only camping?
No, I allow small RVs, but I don't want. In fact, I've got a sign that appears right on my property, nothing more than 25 feet long on my property. I don't want those big things. They come with a lot of problems. So mainly we focus on tent camping only. But people will bring those pop-up things, they're a trailer. I consider those tents. Or they might come in a van and sleep in their van. I'm okay with that. I just don't want a big 40-footer coming onto the property. We can't handle it, for one. We don't have the hookups for it. I don't want to. I'm not installing hookups for anything.
Could they have a pop-up camper and a tent on the same site?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they could do that.
Same site.
Well, it depends on, most of my sites are tent campsites, so you can't even park. You've got to walk 150 to 200 feet to get to your campsite.
What I'm talking about is a site that's right on Kansas Avenue, directly on Kansas Avenue.
Right. The number one site, yeah, that could have in fact, right now we've got a pop-up right there right now.
I don't know, maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago I came by there and there was a pop-up and a tent.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 cars parked right there, right along Kansas Avenue. Kansas Avenue is a pretty dangerous road.
Well, they were on my property, though. The cars were actually off the road.
They weren't parked on the road.
Right.
They were awfully close to the road.
Well, we have families that come and do family kind of acts. So we might have 2 or 3 or 4 cars there if there's a whole family, yeah. And we've had probably 2 tents and 1 pop-up there on several occasions.
So it isn't really a parking area you have then. They can park right on their campsite.
on that particular one, and there's another one they can park at. But everything else I've got, as they mentioned, I've got a parking area for all the cars. I can park easily 15 cars on the property, but that would include the number one site out by the road that you mentioned, because I will park 3 or 4 cars out there if it's a larger group. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does, but it's kind of different than what I was reading about your description of your campsites and what you require. I do have a question of staff, if I could, please. If he has to go to a septic system, is that a septic system per campsite or one common?
It would need to be a commercial system, so it would need to be designed, and that would be, again, as we spoke about previously, it would depend upon the usage, and an engineer would design that.
Would that be your plan, is to have maybe one public restroom on the site?
Well, I would hire a porta potty place to put one up, and people could use it. At any given time, like today, I've got 1 camper on the whole property. Yesterday, I had 3 on the property. We rarely have more than 4 or 5 people on the property, unless we're having a party. That's a whole different thing, which I do open my own bathroom up within my house for many parties. Depends on how many people are there. It's a 10-person party.
Well, what I'm getting at is the state isn't going to allow you to continue to dispose of the waste.
Well, we won't do that. We'll have a porta potty if that's what it requires. Is that? That's
A porta potty that has a contract with the licensed hauler to come out and remove it is acceptable.
Yeah, we will definitely do that if we have to. I'm not against it. It's a different system than what I've been using.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in favor of this request. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor? You're limited to 3 minutes.
My name's Jennifer Stroud. I'm here with my husband, Alexander Stroud. We live on 100 Harbor Road, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and we are here in favor of Enchanted Oaks Campground. I am an Army veteran, and my husband is an active duty soldier stationed here at Fort Leavenworth. This is not our first time here in Leavenworth, and I'm sure it won't be our last. My husband and I actually met here and got married at the courthouse across the street 8 years ago. One of the many things that are hard about the military lifestyle is building core memories with our family. Most core memories are not joyful. It is a constant pain of picking up and moving or watching him deploy and leaving us behind for another year. But between missing important moments in our lives, there are places like Enchanted Oaks Campground. Enchanted Oaks is a quick 30-minute drive from here. It's hard to find a quiet campground like this so close to a metropolitan. We normally would drive hours to western Kansas to be able to pitch a tent and camp. We would have to dedicate a 4-day weekend to a trip like that, but instead, we could come here on any weekend and stay here. Camping trips like this help our family build these positive core memories in our lives that we so desperately lack. This campground is by far one of the cleanest and safest places we have gone. To Dr. Darrell Ray has something in here that has something very special here. His campground is a place for the community. We are here to support the special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? In favor? We will now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in opposition to this request. In opposition. Remember, 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
My name is Antoinette Camasano. I live at 17280 158th Street. I live across the street from Darrell. I oppose this campground because cars are in and out all the time, and they do not park only in your driveway. They park across the street in our gated entry where sometimes we cannot get equipment. we have a gated entry across the street from the campground, and sometimes there's overflow because they don't have enough parking. There will be several cars parked along the side of the road there, and it includes the entry into our gated entry off of Kansas Avenue, which is the entry we use for cattle, farm equipment, and different things. So we have to go around if there's a car parked there. In fact, I think there was a car there just last week for several hours. But there's noise. It is not a quiet area. It is so noisy sometimes on the weekends with music and people screaming sometimes. It is actually frightening to live across the street from what I thought was a home. When we moved in there in 2020, we thought it was just a home there. We didn't know there was a campground. We thought we were moving into a stable community where you have a common family that lives there, not a hotel-like area that comes and goes. There's trash that blows across the road constantly on Kansas Avenue. We are picking up trash along the road between our house and the campground. Cars in and out, parking in front of the gate. Oh, the campers and the tents and the tarp that's thrown over the tents is not a lovely sight to see from your home. It is not. I do not want to see those campers and the tents and the blue tarps thrown up there. Airbnb, if you go out and read the Airbnb comments, hey, yeah, people love it. And they also love our pond. And you'll see, there's people that write about the wonderful view across the street with the pond and the gaggle of geese and things. And if you look in those pictures, you'll see our property, our fence line, part of our property, and then across the street, the Johns, you'll see part of their house in the pictures. So, no, I don't like it, and I'm not in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Elaine Foley, 15360 Kansas Avenue. I wrote a letter to Miss Allison, and I understand she has received that.
There were letters in our packet, ma'am.
We got it.
You should have some additional.
There was. You did read the letter from my family. Okay. Because I might get carried away talking, I will reread the letter. I think it'll be more efficient if I do that. Dear Ms. Allison, my family objects to the camping area we have observed during the past as we drive down Kansas Avenue. This is a residential area, not a camping park. We object to Enchanted Oaks Campground or any other campground being granted permission to continue business in our neighborhood. Property owners in this area would have no information about the history of a camper or campers, temporary or permanent, who would be there. House break-ins or theft could easily result from such an operation, and I didn't bring my facts, but I have heard that there have been a couple of break-ins on Kansas Avenue. We ask that the request submitted by Darrell Ray, parcel ID 186202300001000156699 Kansas Avenue for a special use permit be denied. Thank you very much,
Thank
guys.
you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Drew Scrimshire, 17172 158th Street, Baser. We border the property, and we bought the house last June, and my wife and I moved in August after doing some repairs. We moved into a residential area. We weren't aware that there was a commercial business that butted right up to our property. The campground, or the campsite that was brought up earlier that you can see from Kansas Avenue, is 30 feet from our back fence. Personally, we haven't lived there that long. We haven't experienced a whole lot. My one conversation with Mr. Ray was pleasant. He seems fine. It's just the fact that you don't know who's in your backyard at all times. There is not a fence. Truly, our fence is there, but it does not separate the properties completely. We do have dogs that come into our yard. We haven't had an issue personally with a whole lot of people, but there is noise. There was I guess we could call it a party, concert. I don't know what it was exactly that was held a couple weeks ago, and it was advertised as a satanic or witchcraft festival of some sorts, which does provide a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling bordering that and living as close as we do. So I don't have a lot. We haven't lived there a long time. Like I said, personally, we haven't had any issues, just there are noises. I mean, there are times that it's a little bit uncomfortable not knowing who is in your backyard. The traffic coming in and out of the driveway does cause some inconvenience. People miss the driveway a lot and end up backing down at Kansas Avenue, causing a little bit of a hazard. We've had people park in our ditch or on our side of the road on the shoulder. Just overall, it hasn't been a terrible inconvenience, but it is something that has definitely caught our attention in the 8 months that we've lived there. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Ralph Anderton, 17126 158th Street. My property is right up, my backyard is at his fence line. Over the years, we've been woken up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning by dogs, the campers barking nonstop. A few weeks ago, they had some big party going on that the music went on to 11:30 at night, which I think is a little ridiculous. Maybe they get 5 stars from their campers that go there, but you're not going to get more than 1 star from the people that live next door to it. There's places that people want to camp. There's Tonganoxie Lake. There's Perry Lake. There's all kinds of places to camp. I don't know why we need a campground in a residential area. I don't know really why that you can take a piece of residential property and turn zone it into a commercial piece of property without any kind of permission or without any kind of hearing from the people. I know this has been going on before, and I've asked the planning board before, how can you do this? And they said, well, just is. How do you take residential zoning and turn it into commercial without anybody's approval? Is beyond me. My family's against it. We never know who's camping over there. We don't know if they're going to get in our backyard, climb the fence. We have sheds back there. Somebody's going to break into something. I don't know who cares about the property except the people that come and camp. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Gary Bucati, 15491 Kansas Avenue in Baser. I'm about 1,000 feet down the road from them. And I just have some questions. Does Enchanted Oaks have documented rules and regulations for their campers? And does Enchanted Oaks register the campers in their vehicles upon arrival? Enchanted Oaks and surrounding neighbors live on heavily wooded acreage with lots of leaves and forest debris. Per the United States National Park Service, 85% of all wildfires are caused by human activity. Would the volunteer Fairmount Township Fire Department be able to handle a large wildfire caused by campers? There's also a smoke nuisance for the neighbors. Are there restrictions when a red flag warning or burning ban is issued in Leavenworth County? Have the campfire rings been approved by the volunteer Fairmount Fire Department? Then where does the human waste get disposed of within a primitive campgrounds? And I think that's been addressed. Sewage disposal methods should comply with the Leavenworth County Sanitary Code, and have they been approved by the health code officials? Are campers responsible for their trash, or are receptacles available at the campsite? Are there boundaries established for the neighbor's property? How is the noise level contained? Are ATVs or dirt bikes allowed? Are guns allowed? Is hunting allowed? is there a storm tornado shelter available? Is alcohol allowed? I looked at the Leavenworth zoning parks and campground rules, and I couldn't find a whole lot. But I have a copy of the Douglas County ones and rules from another park, which you might find informative. Give them to you,
Crystal.
Yes, we can take them. We can give them to the planning.
Okay, all right, and then there's a list of my comments.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Joe Roy. I live at 17123 158th Street. I've lived there for 8 or 9 years now, and 3 weeks ago, I have special needs foster children that live with me, and one of them came up the stairs because they could hear the music from across the street. And so, I have an alarm system on my driveway. As soon as you come into my driveway, I know you're there because I have these special needs kids that I've had for 12 years. And I've had people walk up my driveway in the middle of the night. I have no idea if they came from there or not, but I have a pretty good idea that's where they came from. Went up to my barn, checked all the doors, came around the back side of my house, and I finally yelled at them, and they did come around the corner, and I called the police, and the police showed up, and they did not live in Baser, let's put it that way, so I have a pretty good idea where they came from. But anyway, this is a residential neighborhood. This is not a camping neighborhood, My wife and I totally disagree with this. It is not something that we want in our neighborhood. There's all kinds of campgrounds, other places, and for the children that we have at home, it's just we don't feel that it's safe to have people that are not in the neighborhood and most of the people around us know that we have these children, and like I said, they have autism, they have mental retardation, they have a whole list of things, and that's why I have alarm systems on my property, so I know that my children, when somebody comes up, I know they're there so I can go outside. So we don't need any outsiders coming into our neighborhood. That's how I feel about it, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this request? In opposition? Is there any additional information to be presented?
Just you all received additional letters that were provided to you.
Okay, and there was complaints on that. When there two?
One complaint.
There was a complaint which created that need to send them a letter in which they applied for this special use permit.
Okay, all right. Okay, the public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are there any comments or questions, commissioners?
So
Do we need the applicant to come back up?
Did you ask if we had any commissioners?
Yeah, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Comments? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So in his comment, it said he's been doing it for 4.5 years, right? I take it the neighborhoods and those homes have been there a lot longer than that. Is that right?
Generally speaking, yes.
Yeah.
So this came into after the folks had built their homes, made it a neighborhood, and so forth.
Generally speaking,
probably, I would say most of them.
Yes.
I know.
Okay.
At least most of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we need to have them come back up, do you think? Answer some of the questions?
Address some of the concerns.
Yeah. Will the applicant please come back up, sir?
Yeah.
A lot of concerns that actually really concerned me came up on this. We'll give you a chance to address that, the noise, parking, what else, trash, Yeah.
Well, I can address several things. The party stopped at 10 o'clock sharp. I know because I was the one that stopped it, and I regretted having them on the property. So that was a mistake to let that group on the property. I didn't realize they were going to do that. So that'll never happen again, but it's already done. My mistake.
Do you screen your people?
Well, I thought I screened that group, and I had some rules for them, but they went beyond the noise barrier that I had set. So I fully acknowledge that. It was my own fault for not stopping it earlier. But it did stop at 10 o'clock sharp. I guarantee that. Second thing is, I don't know a time when we've had parking on the street in the last quite a few years. So how our parking is blocking somebody else, I mean, we're quite a ways away from it. I mean, even close places, there's just no place to park on the street. So I don't know about that. That would be a surprise to me. As far as trash, we are meticulous about picking up trash. As somebody said, I think in one of the letters to you, was that you can't find a piece of trash on my property because I pick up every single piece of trash. Now, I won't say there's not trash in the darn ditch. I go out and clean the ditch about twice a year. But I've been doing that for years. It has nothing to do with my campground. So, I don't know. Those are three things I think I heard.
Well, one of the requirements is that the noise level has to be at 60 decibel at the property line.
That's new. That's something I just learned in this application process. Okay. So that requirement, I have no problems with at all. I don't even have parties at my place very often, maybe once a year or twice a year.
Well, it doesn't take much on a 6-acre tract to have, when you're close by, to have 60 decibels at the property line.
Right. So I'm actually in full agreement with that. It's not a concern on my part. Well, it's a concern that I not be a bad neighbor. And I actually apologize to my neighbors. Some of the stuff I just heard, I didn't even know was happening. I can't take credit for somebody walking off onto somebody's property. I don't even know who they are. I don't know if they were camp. I don't know why a camper would go anywhere besides the property. But, yeah.
All right, any other questions of the applicant? Any of you?
Well, and the gentleman brought up some good points. Do they register when they come onto the campground? Do you take a driver's license,
yes,
a tag number, that kind of information?
Yeah, they have to be registered, and they have to have a credit card on file. I won't take cash. You can't drive onto my property and camp unless you've registered online. So I've got a full record of who you are. I know who you are, and that's how I get the insurance from the. It's called hipcamp.com. They're the ones that it's kind of like Airbnb for campers, and they just they insure people like me. These kinds of camps are all over the United States. So yeah, a lot of the questions that the other gentleman had about our rules and regulations, I've got a whole 2-page list of rules and regulations for the property. I'll be glad to share with anybody that wants to see them. I did not give those to you though, but I'll be happy to.
Sir, I've heard you say I clean, I maintain. Do you have like a staff?
It's me, myself, and my partner, but only 99% of it I do myself, yeah.
So you feel that you and you alone are enough to manage this number of campsites with parties once or twice a year and trash and keeping noise decibels down? And you said it yourself in here that you can't control and you haven't seen, but it's you and yourself, and there's no other staff to maintain these rules and regulations.
Been doing it for 4 years. I get the trash out. I make sure it's all clean. I clean the toilets. I'm the janitor and the businessman all at the same time. It's a tiny business. I think my accountant said I made $5,000 off the whole thing last year. Oh, that's not very big. There's not a lot of campers coming in to do that. So, yeah, I can handle it. I'm retired. It's my retirement income, I guess you could say, and hobby at the same time.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
Just one. Crystal, have we had any complaints about this establishment prior to this meeting tonight?
As Amy stated previously, we did receive a formal complaint several months ago. That complaint was actually in regards to an event that was going to be happening on Mr. Ray's property, and that's when we reached out to Dr. Ray, and that's when we reached out and reevaluated the use that was taking place on the property as the campground.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that,
okay, thank you.
And we're not necessarily aware of why this didn't have to go through the SUP process before, in terms of specifics.
yeah, so a previous director had made a determination that because of at the time, the very limited use of it and the way that it was being used did not require a special use permit.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Sir, comment portion is closed.
Okay, thank you.
Take a motion.
Okay. Not quite sure how I want to word this, but I'm going to give it a shot. Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed special use permit as outlined in case DV 22-054 be denied. The basis that the findings on the golden factors and the staff report adopted by the Planning Commission as the facts, testimony, and evidence presented to this board tonight. I make a motion that the request for a special use permit be denied.
Second.
Alan, okay. I think you were about tied. So. Have a motion on the floor with a second to deny case number DEV 22-054 special use permit for Enchanted Oaks Campground. Is there any further discussion? The roll call vote. Mark Denny. It is to deny.
I think it's important that the county have businesses and campsites like this, and obviously he does a good job with his customers, as evidenced by the number of letters we received. But I don't feel like this is the exact spot for it in the best area, so I'm going to vote yes to deny.
Okay. Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus Major.
Yes.
Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens.
Yes.
Tom Dials.
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Motion to deny approved 9-8. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item no earlier than June 29th, 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Leavenworth County Courthouse. I need to be here because they make the final decision. Kansas law allows a petition protesting the decision by the Planning Commission to be filed. That petition must be filed within 14 calendar days after the hearing. Additional information on the filing of the protest petition can be obtained by the Office of Planning and Zoning. Again, this motion was denied in a vote of 8-0. Moving on, for the last item tonight, Leavenworth County Planning Commissioners will now consider case number DEB 22-067, special use permit. Termination of flat land excavating as outlined in the posted agenda does require a public hearing. Staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is a request to review the special use permit that was granted for flatland excavating in 2019. The Board of County Commissioners has directed staff to bring this back through the process, and I'll give just a little bit of background on that. The zoning and subdivision regulations provide a mechanism for rescission of an existing special use permit in the event that terms and conditions are not being followed. That process is nearly identical to the process that was used to grant the special use permit. That is essentially that staff reviews it, staff notifies it, staff writes a report, submits it to you, makes it part of the public record. You hear any complaint, you hear the complaints, you hear testimony from the public, you hear from the applicant, and you all consider that information and you make a recommendation just like you would with any special use permit. I would state that as I go through here, I will let you know that I have asked for additional information from the applicants. They have not yet provided that. Some of that information was asked for less than a week ago. So we are going to go through this. This is all special use permits, all decisions that you make are always big decisions, and they're deserving of considerable weight. However, given the nature of this, I would certainly caution that you hear what is presented to you, that you consider it thoughtfully, and that if you at any time determine that you need additional information or you need additional time, to certainly ask for that. This is not a speedy process. The turtle wins the race. So with that, I will go on. Okay.
Okay, before we continue, I think we probably want to take, it's been here a while, let's take about a 10-minute break.
Yes, please.
Of course.
Okay. All right, we'll break for 10 minutes, so we'll reconvene about 5 till, something like that. Okay, I got 6:55, so we're going to go back to order. We're at the public comment portion thing. Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak.
Nope.
Pardon me. I have not given my staff report yet.
I thought you had.
Nope. Not on this.
I'm sorry. I asked for it. I thought.
I mean, we can
I'm sorry.
if you want it.
No,
let's hear it.
Okay. The property is located at, now I got all discombobulated there. Is located near at 227th Street, just outside of the city of Easton. Again, the applicants, or Mr. and Mrs. Briggs, have been operating flatland excavating at this location since 2019. As many of us may know, this has operated as a landfill and a quarry for several decades. It's been under numerous ownership over the last several decades, and the Britzes took ownership of it in 2019. On February 22nd of 2019, when Mr. and Mrs. Britz applied for their special use permit, one of the things that they requested is amending the existing hours of operation, because a previous special use permit had been on this property, amending the hours of operation from 7:30 a.m. from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and they wanted to change that to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday is what it was ultimately determined to be. They also requested an addition of 25 trips per day. Part of the resolution requirements was that they would agree that all loads would be screened to ensure contents are acceptable under KDHE guidelines. They do have a state permit, of course. They were also going to separate out concrete and scrap metals, which could be used for recycling, and that equipment would operate during normal business hours only. The hours that were adopted by the resolution in 2019 were from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. That means all business activities, including dumping, including operation of vehicles on the site, should be taking place during that time. That is one of the violations of their special use permit, is that they have operated outside of those hours knowingly. Also, that loads would be tarped and they would abide by all state, local, federal rules and regulations. That is a condition of every single special use permit that is granted by Leavenworth County Commissioners, is that you will abide by state, local, and federal regulations. Failure to do that is, in effect, a violation of your local permit. Regardless of whether or not that violation is 1 time or 100 times, failure to abide by your state or federal permit is a violation of your local permit. KDHE definition of construction and demolition landfill, which is what this is not a household waste. This is not a trash dump where you would take your typical household waste. This is for construction debris only. It's solid waste resulting from the construction, repairing, remodeling, and demolition of structures, roads, sidewalks, and utilities, untreated wood, untreated sawdust, It's small amounts of municipal solid waste which would be generated by the consumption of food and drinks at construction or demolition sites. That is permitted. One of the complaints that we have had numerous times is that there are large amounts of household waste being dumped there. That is one of the things that the county has actually looked into, and I will talk about that briefly later, but that is one of the violations of their special use permit. We go on to include what waste may be included. This is all in your staff report. This has been presented, largely this presentation has been presented to the Board of County Commissioners. We have a timeline of complaints. Again, this business the Brits began to operate this business in 2019. For several months they operated the business and we did not have complaints. However, in 2020, staff began to receive complaints very, very regularly. Staff was receiving complaints regarding trash and debris along the roadway. We did contact Mr. Brits and told him about the complaints that we were receiving. Mr. Brits always seemed very eager to help fix the problem. He began sending out crews several times a week to clean up the roadways to aid with that. In September of 2020, staff began receiving complaints regarding the volume of trucks entering and exiting the landfill. There were also complaints that household waste was being dumped at the site. Our code enforcement officer followed up on the complaints and at that time found them to be largely unsubstantiated. And again, we had a conversation with Mr. Brits, and again, he was open to doing whatever needed to be done to fix the issue. In 2021, in March, complaints continue to be submitted to staff, and the primary complaint is that there is significant debris along the roadway and household waste is being dumped. This has been a continuous complaint that we have received. At that time, Mr. Brits agreed that the debris was an issue, and he again sent out crews to clean out the roadway. Staff contacted KDHE at that time regarding the household waste claims, and KDHE at that time determined that the complaint was unsubstantiated and closed the case. In June of 2021, confirmation that operations were taking place outside of allowed business hours. Again, that is a direct violation of their special use permit. We sent a letter to the applicant and informed him that failure to abide by the terms of the special use permit could result in termination of his special use permit. In September of 2021, staff began to receive numerous phone calls. At this point, phone calls were nearly daily. Operations outside of approved operation hours, trash and debris being scattered along private property. Staff again reached out to Mr. Brits. In December, the landfill appeared to be uncovered in a manner that's not acceptable according to the requirements of their state permit, and staff began visiting neighboring properties, and at that time there was certainly trash and debris on neighboring properties. I myself visited a number of those neighboring properties, and there was certainly trash on neighboring properties that appeared, again, to come from the landfill. In February of 2022, this at one point is what the dump did look like. One of the terms of their state permit is that waste is being appropriately covered so that it does not look like this, so that it is not an eyesore. That's a pond. There are certainly some leaves in that pond, but there is also trash. I did, again, myself visit this property. I did not take this photo, but I can confirm that this pond at one point in time did have substantial amounts of trash in it. On February 10th of 2022, the county issued an immediate cease and desist order. On February 15th, KDHE completed an inspection and they determined the landfill was in violation of 5 requirements. Again, that is a violation of their local permit. They required remediation to immediately take place, and they gave them until March 14th to come into compliance. The property owners did begin to clean up the property. On February 22nd, 2022, there was a substantial fire at the landfill. Fires at landfills are not completely uncommon by any stretch of the imagination. However, there was a fire that did impact neighboring property owners. There was significant smoke for several days due to the fire. The applicant requested that staff visit the site on March 4th. which we did, and certainly the condition of the landfill appeared to be much more kept than it had previously been. The applicant was working, it seems tirelessly at that point, to bring the property back into compliance. And on April 22nd, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners lifted the cease and desist order, which allowed the operation of the landfill. At that meeting, they also directed staff to begin the process of terminating the special use permit, or for the applicant to bring forth conditions that they felt would mitigate some of the concerns and some of the violations that have happened. With our zoning and subdivision regulations, I do not have an avenue to amend their existing special use permit. I only have an avenue to rescind it, to recommend it be rescinded. I do not have an option to amend it, which is why staff reached out to the applicant and asked them to submit concurrently a new special use permit application. I spoke with Mr. Britz a couple of weeks ago and specifically asked. He asked if that's something that he should do, and I specifically told him that he should do that. In doing so, that my recommendation to the Planning Commission would be to table this matter so that we could gather all of the information that we needed to take essentially a new special use permit through. I have not received an updated special use permit application. Last week, I believe it was Thursday of last week, I did request additional information, and that is in your staff report. The information is on the page 4 of your staff report. I requested a copy of all logs, reports of trucks entering the property for the last 16 months. One of the accusations is that they have exceeded 25 trips per day on a very regular basis. Staff does not go out and camp in front of this property every single day and count trucks. I have one code enforcement officer. That would not be feasible. We have gone out there several times. There have been instances where trucks were not parked. There have been days where there was more traffic than others, which is part of why we have requested the logs, so that we can know how many trucks per day, what the average really is. If that is less than 25, then that would be well within the confines of their special use permit. If it is greatly more than 25, that may be something that they would want to look at addressing in a new special use permit application. I've also requested a copy of all reports provided by the client to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment regarding remediation efforts. A copy of all correspondence between them and the Kansas Department of Environment regarding corrective action. A copy of all reports available showing their corrective plans and actions taken to comply with the terms and conditions of their special use permit. And a copy of any record of any asbestos contamination that the owner-operator may be aware of that is on the property. That is another concern that has been raised by neighboring property owners, again, is that things were being dumped that are not supposed to be dumped there. And so we are asking for the applicants to provide that information to us so that we can prove that they either are or are not in compliance with their special use permit. To date, like I said, I have not received that information. I did fairly recently ask for it, though. I wrote you a staff report that I trust everyone has read. I do not feel the need to belabor said staff report, but I am always open up for any questions that you may have. The applicant is here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions of staff?
I have a question for Mr. Van Paris. At one point, I had read that there was a lawsuit filed naming the county. Is that lawsuit still ongoing, and how, if it should, or how it should affect what we talked about?
Mr. Denny, that suit is pending, and in fact, I'm a named defendant in it as well. I would suggest that you proceed on I'll use the term, a parallel track. And this is a planning and zoning matter. You should set aside that consideration at this time.
But is the lawsuit, and forgive me because I don't know what the lawsuit entails, but is the lawsuit related to this planning and zoning? I'm assuming that it is.
Yes.
So
it relates to the operation of the landfill by Flatland Excavating.
Any other questions of staff?
Do we table this until we have all the complete information from the applicant? I mean, is this where we need to go tonight, or do we need to waste a couple hours here hearing from everybody only to say, let's table this until we have these truck records, these debris records, what's actually being dumped out here?
Commissioner Owens, so I would say we have people who have come tonight to this hearing, and I don't think it would ever be a waste of time to hear any of their concerns. As I stated in my opening comments, your thoughtful consideration of this is paramount. And if you do not feel that you can make a decision tonight, again, I'm waiting on additional information. I would not recommend that you make a decision this evening. However, it certainly is up to the commission, but we do have people who have taken time out of their day to come here to speak during the public hearing. And certainly if the commission would like to hear that, I would encourage that.
I certainly did not mean I want to waste their time. I want to hear what every one of them has to say that affects our living conditions out here. So,
well, I think we need to open it up to the public today and hear that, and then if we don't make a decision, we'll give them plenty of time to get us more information, and then we can take what we hear tonight and the more information and make probably a better, more informed decision at that time. So if anybody else has any more questions of staff, I will now open the public comment portion if you're all ready to do so. Okay. Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item, upon recognition, will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. Again, the applicant is allowed 15 minutes. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the item will be limited to 3 minutes. Time will be strictly enforced. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. Will the applicant please come forward?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say I can share. Okay. Thank you.
It's the same thing.
Correct.
One more, sorry. This is from a prior presentation, but I wanted to make sure you guys have everything that we've presented throughout this process.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sorry for the delay, Commissioners. My name is Ross Bowden. I'm a partner at the law firm of Sandberg Phoenix, and I'm here to present on behalf of Flatland as the applicant in this revocation process. It's my understanding that you're limiting me to 15 minutes for this. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not. By extending it, we'll a lot of information to go through, so we probably couldn't get through it tonight anyway. So.
Yeah, there is a lot of information. You're absolutely right. I don't think I can present everything I need to present in response to what the staff has raised in 15 minutes. I'll do my best. I certainly would appreciate as much time as you're willing to give me. Like I said, it's not my intent to belabor this or hold this up. I want to move through this quickly, but there's a lot to respond to and a lot of information to process. And so I'll do my best.
Okay.
So first, I would like to just introduce the Britz family here. Christy Britz is the owner of Flatland Excavating. This is Sean Britz. Their children are here as well. There's several employees here as well. They've come here in support of asking you all to continue the use of their SUP. But really what we would like to do, as has already been discussed, we'd like to recommend to you not to make any decision tonight. There's a lot of information that I'm going to give you. I've handed you over 125 pages of materials. The staff has prepared a lot of information. I don't think there's any way that can all be actually processed and make an informed decision tonight. So it would be Flatland's first and foremost request that we table this matter, come back after everybody's had an opportunity to digest all of the information, make an informed decision. So that is what we would ask the commission to do today. So jumping into the presentation, if you can look at the binder that's labeled June 8th, 2022 meeting. It's also up on the screen there. We'll just start off with slide 2 here. Direct your attention there. Like I said, what we're asking the commission to do is table this for at least 60 days. There was some discussion just a little bit ago with the staff, or from the staff, where they asked, for more information. Let me just comment on that briefly, I guess, before I get into this. So we received, in response to our request for an explanation as to why this proceeding was going forward, a request for more information. That request triggered from the county a request for some documents. We did our best to compile that in the 3 business days we were afforded to provide that. There's a lot of that information in the materials that I've given to you. We provided that to the staff this afternoon, just like they provided us their presentation this afternoon as well. A couple of reasons for asking the commission to delay any vote on this matter for at least 60 days. You may not know this, but the Britz family has been asking for months to meet with the county commissioners. But to this day, the county commissioners have absolutely refused to meet with the Britz family. So think about that for just a minute. The county commissioners are trying to ruin the Britz's business here, and they won't even agree to have a meeting with them. That's a pretty big deal, and imagine how outraged you all would be if the county commissioners tried to shut down your business without even giving you the basic courtesy of a meeting. It's just not fair. It's not right. It's a violation of their civil rights. And pushing this back for 60 days would allow some time for hopefully this commission to recommend that the county commissioners sit down and meet with the Britzes and see if we can figure out an amicable resolution to this entire situation, the lawsuit, everything. That's how this matter really ought to be handled, and that's what we'd like to have happen. So moving on then to slide 3, I've listed here some more reasons why the commission should delay this hearing. It's really imperative for you all to think about the gravity of the decision before you today. Make no mistake, you are voting on whether the government should destroy the Britz family's lives. That's exactly what you are voting on today. If for no other reason, the gravity of this situation should convince any fair-minded commissioner on this panel to take a step back, think about this, process all of that information, and come back another day. And as one good example of this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe any member of this panel has been out to the Flatland property, has interviewed the Brits family, has talked with any of their employees throughout this process. I would think that any government body, before shutting down a business, would want to extend the basic courtesy of maybe laying eyes on the business, speaking with the Britses. I think that is one of the most basic things anybody in this room would want. So there's some other reasons listed there. I'm not going to go over them all because I'm not going to have time in just 15 minutes. So I'll now direct your attention to slide 4. A point I want to make with this slide, if you remember anything that I say today, remember this. The staff report does not identify a single active violation of the SUP or law. Not a single active violation of the SUP or law. And yet we're here under an application by the county commissioners to try to take away their SUP when there is no active violation. Instead, what I'd like to have the commissioners do is focus on the facts, like the facts listed in slide 4. In slide 4, you'll see some excerpts that come from an affidavit provided by Thomas Hayes from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the regulating body responsible for regulating landfills. And he has given us this under oath statement confirming, to the best of his knowledge, Flatland is compliant with Kansas regulation and statute. That's been provided a long time ago. It was in the prior presentation that we gave to the county commissioners. It's included again for your review in the materials I provided you today. And yet, again, how can the government try to shut down a business when the governing body responsible for actually regulating that business says everything's good here? Why is the county trying to inject themselves and add more government into this situation? It just doesn't make any sense. Another good reason to continue this hearing, as you'll find in our materials that I've given you, we hired a very reputable environmental engineering firm, Blackstone Environmental, to come out to Flatland in response to some of the concerns that we've heard from the public, from the county and others, and just for our own sake as wanting to be responsible business owners. We hired them to come out, do an inspection, an environmental examination of the property. They dug waste test pits. They conducted soil samples that were then laboratory tested. And you'll see in slides 5 and 6 the conclusions that Blackstone Environmental reached. And I'll just read from that briefly. Blackstone did not observe evidence of environmental contamination during site reconnaissance activities. Further, they went on to say that the environmental site observations were generally consistent with similar C&D landfills in the region based on their collective experience of over 30 years in the solid waste industry. So again, one thing I'd like to comment on here I think is really important is Blackstone did a soil sample test at a 150-foot radius off of the actual dump site. Okay, the reason why that's important is the standard testing perimeter would normally be around 500 feet, sometimes 1,000 feet, so farther away from the actual dump site. What Blackstone did here is they tested at 150 feet, so just 150 feet outside of the dump site, so very, very close, right? And their laboratory test confirmed, as you'll see in slide 6, that no hazardous substances were found, and the soil sample testing results were consistent with residential standards. That's actually pretty incredible that a landfill's soil test that close to the dump site is consistent with residential zoning standards. So again, this is new information that we're providing. The county has not seen this before. Obviously, you all have not seen this before either. So again, take some time, look at the report. The full report is provided. in the materials, digest that information, and then we can come back at another date and have a more thorough discussion. So I'll move on then to slide 7. Just quickly want to point out just a couple events in the timeline here. Again, I'm not going to have time to cover all of this in only 15 minutes, but I just want to point out that on March 23rd, after the county commissioners had shut down Flatland for approximately 60 days and given a partial list of alleged violations to Flatland, which Flatland then went out in 7 days and tried to fix absolutely every one of those violations and did, and you can see the proof of that in the March 23rd presentation handout that I gave you. The county commissioners decided to let Flatland reopen. So obviously that would seem to indicate that the county commissioners' concerns, whatever those concerns were satisfied at that time. So why are we here just a couple of months later now trying to take away their special use permit when they just recently apparently were satisfied by the remediation efforts that Flatland was taking? It just doesn't seem to be consistent with the narrative that's being presented. So I think that that's important to point out. Focusing your attention now to slide 8, if you will take a look at that. Most of the allegations, I guess, against Flatland seem to fall within the late 2021, early 2022 time period. I think it's important, just for context, to point out something that the public may not be aware of here and deserves considerable weight, which is the Britz family has dealt with some very severe medical situations, life-threatening situations during that time period. As you'll see on this slide, I've got it kind of summarized there. We didn't go into too much detail. If you want to meet with the Britzes, I'm sure they'd be happy to share with you more information. But long story short, Mrs. Britz had a collapsed lung, a life-threatening heart condition during this time period. Mr. Britz she also contracted COVID. Mr. Britz contracted COVID, was hospitalized, and required to be on oxygen for quite a long time, and never really got back to good health until at least late January. So, they would readily acknowledge that during that time frame, they weren't as on top of things as they normally would be. But that in and of itself is not a reason to shut this business down. And just think about how that might impact your lives if those things happen to you and your family. You're not going to be as on top of your work when those types of things happen in your lives. Moving on to slides 9 and 10. These just summarize the process for terminating the SUP. I'm not going to have much time to talk about these either. Suffice it to say, the process for terminating an SUP is the same as approving of one. There's certain steps that need to be followed. None of those steps have been followed to date, but we're at the Planning Commission voting recommendation stage here at this point. But this process has really been kind of doomed from the start, if you will. Moving on to slides 11 and 12. Here, I just want to point out the reasons for terminating, for a county to terminate an SUP are really very limited from a legal perspective. There's only a few ways that can really happen, and these are incredibly high standards. The legal definition of a nuisance, for example, is pretty high. We have the definition here. You can read that, digest that, think if anything you hear constitutes or rises to the level of a nuisance in your mind. But one would certainly think that when we have the state regulators, who are the experts in the area, and an independent environmental engineering firm, who are the other outside experts in the area, telling you all that Flatland is safe, there's no environmental concerns, they're in compliance with state law, that's the more credible information than perhaps a few noisy neighbors, if you will. Moving on to slide 12. I kind of touched on this at the outset, but we did receive a letter and request for more information from the county just recently. We're going to provide that information, and we'd like a little bit more time. have just a brief wrap up.
We'll give you one more minute, and
Okay.
that's all. And you could probably go on for an hour.
I could.
For us to get through this information, so it's not going to give you any more time to go. But
Yeah.
We really need to shut her down.
I will.
One last, just quick comment, and then we're done.
Thank you. I'll do my best. So slide 14, I just want to point out, we had a very quick discussion from the staff about they wanted evidence of what our average daily loads were. It's right here. It's 20.9. Now, pointing out, too, that the SUP says 25 plus loads per day is allowed, but 20.9 is the average, so they are in compliance. The information to the contrary is just not accurate. There's plenty of pictures in there about the screening measures that have been taken, the compliance with the Magaha memo. There are photographs pointing out each and every one of those details. Take
We'll
the
go
time.
through all that.
Thank you,
sir, very much.
The last one,
Sir,
very last thing. You said 1 minute, so I'd like to take that full minute if you don't mind. Take a look at the text messages in the back from County Commissioner Jeff Culbertson. Okay. I'm sure you have talked with him. These are pretty concerning text messages. I think you would agree from a governing body trying to shut down a business. Please take a look at it. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
We'll be looking at everything.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
We'll now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in favor of this request. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this request? Sure. Go ahead. State your name and address.
I'm Brandon Willis. I own Albie Wise Salvage. The address is 22527 Mitchell Road. I use the landfill for my roll-off service for construction debris. With the rising cost of fuel and inflation or administration putting all the hard times on businesses with help and all that, I strongly feel this is going to hurt my business if this gets shut down. It's going to cost too much to go further away, do all kinds of demo work outside of the county to bring it in. I mean, I just really feel like that the neighbors should think about it, and the community should think about it too. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request?
I would like to reserve my time.
Reserve your time? What do you mean, reserve your time?
I want to speak in favor of. I'd like to hear what's going on and then reserve my time.
I guess you can speak whenever you want, but it's going to be in favor and then opposition. Okay. Sir, go ahead.
My name is Jeff D. James. I live at 31210 227th Street, which is literally just south of him, of the landfill. His driveway has an easement through our property, okay? And I've watched it develop throughout the whole time, right? And there's been some concerns that I've had over the course of the time I've lived there. I've lived there 10 years. It's been a dump since I lived there. It's changed ownership. I've met Sean, his family, everybody that works there. I'm homeschooling my daughter, so I'm there all the time, 24 hours a day pretty much. The noise level, it can get a little loud sometimes. I mean, you're by a dump. You've seen pictures of before and after. It got a little out of control. Anytime I've ever had a problem with Sean or anything that's happened there, the first thing I've ever done, like I've never been here, I've never spoke to anybody in this room really, but anytime I've ever had a concern, I get on the phone, I call the guy. He addresses it. I got some flat tires on the road. He bought a magnet for his truck. He drove all the way to Fairfax to fix a flat tire on my wife's car. You know, I didn't expect that. She got a flat tire. She went outside. There was a nail in her tire. She drove all the way over there an hour to her work to fix her tire. You know, he bought a new set of tires for her car because it was an issue. You know, he picked up the thing. I mean, I've met their family. I think that, you know, maybe we should continue the thing like it's been, you know, and actually look at what he's came from, the complaints that he's had, it was huge. It was a problem. It was getting to the point that I was about to say something, And after the fire, which I could see from my house, it's been all covered up. It looks 100 times better than it did from my house. Honestly, the night before I was coming home I work part-time after I do school with my daughter. She's in 6th grade. And I was coming home that night, the fire was, and I found it kind of odd that there was fires down below in the field. Somebody was burning stuff. And then that night, there's a fire at the dump. I don't know if that's coincidence or something, nefarious is happening to him. I really don't know, but I keep my eye out around there a lot, and it just kind of a weird coincidence to me, if you know what I mean. But that's about all I have to say. Like I say, I've been watching it all along. I took the time off of my work. I'm supposed to be there right now.
Thank you,
because
sir.
I don't think you should shut down somebody's business.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request?
Yeah, I'm John Schillig, 22081 Turner Road, and Sean has helped me out and been a good neighbor to me, so that's all I can really say. Been a good guy.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this request? In favor? Okay, we're going to go on to opposition. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this request? In opposition? Please, if you want to speak in opposition, you can line up or whatever. Let's try to keep the line moving as much as we can.
My name is Greg List. I live at 22396 Easton Road. Obviously, as you guys can see, it was explained that they don't follow the SUP you guys put in place. They don't follow rules of the meeting. They don't follow the rules that they put in place for themselves back on March 23rd. Their operating hours, they stated, were 7 to 8. Their gates would be open 7 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Well, I guess we'll start taking videos because everybody wants facts, and my facts aren't given daylight of time of, let's see here. We'll start with just this last weekend, June 4th. That's a Saturday, 6:48 in the morning. First truck rolls in. Well, they're not supposed to be open till 8, not following the rules. That same, the next day, June 5th, Sunday. Gates are open at 3 p.m., not supposed to be open on Sundays. People are there. 6:19 in the morning, May 9th, same day, coming down the hill at 5:21 p.m., going in. May 18th, 5:28 at night, going into the dump. Well, their gates are closed at 4:45, not following the rules. It's a slap in the face to the community. It should be a slap in the face to you guys. It's sad. The real reason everybody's here is this is a residential area. In 1 mile, there's 103 residents in a 1 mile radius of this dump. On average, that's 200 people. That is 1,000% of residential area. This is a massive commercial process going on over here, operation. It needs to stop. We've been dealing with this for over 2 years, and now we're going to drag our feet for 60 days more. Well, what happens in that 60 days? They get to continue to work 13 hours a day. They're open still. They're taking more than 25 trucks a day. And again, I guess we'll just start videotaping how many trucks go in there. It was stated by a county commissioner recently that on a temporary SUP that they denied for a specific reason, and I quote, due to the character of the neighborhood, impact of the neighbors, and the traffic in a residential area. Well, we've been asking for that for 2.5 years. 2 years going on now. And those 3 reasons right there should be enough to shut this down in a residential area. I get we're not the south end of the county where they got more rights as a taxpaying resident as Easton people, but when do the first district people start getting a bone thrown to them? Right next door to this dump is Oak Hill Daycare. My 2 kids go there. And the clean debris that goes in this dump should not have the trash smell that people roll their windows down in the city of Easton and roll them back up as they get back out because the smell from this dump is that bad. Don't put us on the back burner. We are the tax-paying people in this county. People don't even live here that run this company. It's time to shut this down, and hopefully this is the first step in the county where you guys will do something.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, I'm Sharon Wagner. I live at 22578 Easton Road, Easton, Kansas. I live directly across from the dump on Highway 192. I've been to every county commissioner meeting to talk to this as it's been brought forward. I will tell you, as a resident and the person that you guys represent, I find it even unquestionable that we would be coming here today tabling this yet again. And in my opinion, if the counselor needs another 60 days to prove his case, then there's something wrong, because he may say there's no active violations, but as Greg just said, we have documented that there are. I have one on May 23rd that they're running past those hours. In addition to this, that I don't think anybody's mentioned, in that SUP, they can run past 8, but only 10, I think extra 10 days out of the month. Nobody has talked about that. They are not following an SUP. It is your responsibility to put in place SUPs, as it is your responsibility to act on them. It is not a legal thing for you guys. You guys have rules and regulations by the county that you have set forward that allows you to pull an SUP, just as it allows you to give your recommendation for an SUP. You're giving a recommendation. Do you really believe that this type of operation should be ran in a residential area? I have lived in this community my entire life. My husband and I built our house 33 years ago. So I have been here through all of the operations of that landfill. We have never placed a complaint. We have always gotten along with that. But as I've heard tonight through several of the people that have been here, the people that get an SUP that are happy is because the person running it wants to be part of that neighborhood and wants to work with you. It is not that way. I am sorry. They clean the trash up, but they can't control the trash. You can't control fires. I should not have to worry about fires breaking out in this size of a landfill for me, my grandkids, my kids. I walk out my front door in the morning and the smell is horrible. I don't know how you meter that, other than I hope you believe me that when I walk out in the morning and I have to smell that dump in my family home that I've been at for 33 years is wrong. This type of operation should not be in a residentially zoned area. And I think that's what you guys are in place to do, is to look at that. Is this operation what it should be for a residentially zoned area? And are they following their own SUP that they put forward? It would be absolutely no. And I have no reason to believe that Blackstone really did what they said, or that they're checking their stuff, because I don't believe it. And I hope that you don't put where this company has multiple times broken the SUP in multiple ways and still believe that they will continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Thumbs up.
I would like to say one last thing. If he was allowed an extra 1 minute, I think you should allow all of us an extra 1 minute.
No, we're not going to allow everybody extra 1 minute. And you did go over, so.
My name's Susan Thorne, 33751 255th Street, Easton, Kansas. As she stated, she's lived there for many years. There are generations of wonderful families here. Their grandparents, their children, their grandbabies, all suffering. It's ridiculous. Fancy Pants here, he wants to throw insults. Have you spoken to any of these wonderful people?
Ma'am, you're talking to us, not anybody else.
Okay, I wonder if...
all your conversation
Sure.
with us.
Okay, I didn't know that. Well, he asked you if you guys have spoken to the family. Have you guys spoken to these wonderful people? They're wonderful, wonderful families of this county. The smell is atrocious. If you drive into Easton, you can smell it. It's horrendous. The site, I mean, are we building up to Mount Rushmore? How high are we going? It's just absurd, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Karen Crook. I live at 22461 Happy Hollow Road. Just north of the dump, my husband and I, Lord, have lived there since 1985. Our family has lived across and beside the dump, his family since about 1947, so 75 years. So beside the dump and across from the dump. So our serene life has been disrupted, pretty much, by the noise and the smell. And the lawyer mentioned that the civil rights of the business owners have been affected. Well, what about our rights? We're the taxpayers in this county, and we're the landowners. And I don't agree, and it's not appreciated that an industrial landfill that's not zoned is in our area. That has always been a dump for Leavenworth County, not for trucks coming in from Missouri or wherever that was coming in and dumping there. So it's not zoned for that. It's too big. We're a farming and ranching community with 4-H and FFA kids and farm kids that are driving on permits at age 14. That's a small road. It's curvy road. My husband drives a tractor. My brother-in-law drives a tractor. Our cousin was hit on his tractor by somebody going too fast. Well, these trucks are big and they're fast and they have big loads. They can't just stop. Okay? Our cattle gets out sometimes. It's not zoned for that. It's dangerous. We can't have it. It's just not there. I'm not an advocate to stop someone's business. But this is not the place for it, okay? So something's got to change. There's a daycare right there. My brother-in-law, you heard Greg talk about that. I have nieces and nephews that go there. This is not the place for it. The SUP that they talked about might be active now. It was violated. What does that tell you? It was violated. They didn't follow it. So something's got to change. It can't be there. The pollution, they said they did their perk test or wherever they did, and outside their little area. But in the dump area, whatever's leached goes into the ground where the crops grow, what's harvested there, that cattle eat, that we eat. Come on, guys. This isn't the place for a dump. It's time that Easton has more consideration than we've been getting in a lot of years. Our taxes have gone up. I don't know how, but something's got to change, and we're looking to you to make that change. So please listen to our concerns. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. In opposition.
Shannon O'Donnell Hadley, 108 Broad Street, Easton, Kansas, and I'm giving my 3 minutes to Sharon.
No, ma'am, we're not going to share minutes. It's your 3 minutes, or...
And why not?
We're just...
They've
not
done it
going to
before.
keep doing that. We're not going to be doing that.
But you
If
gave
want 3
the
minutes,
attorney
it's
an
fine.
extra minute, so...
Or she can have 3 minutes, but she can't have 6 minutes. Okay?
My name's Dennis Crook, Lisa Crook at 22351 Easton Road, and I'll make mine fairly short and sweet. You can't stand to even mow your grass because of the stench. And I want you to believe that. I don't know how I put it across to you. I've worked in the construction business for going on 40 years now. I understand that there is waste in that, but it has not been managed right. It has not been taken care of. All the way up, I built my house 33 years ago, and all the way up till the time of 2020, I had no complaints about it at all. I understand the trucks. I understand how construction works, that you have to have traffic on a state highway. But this has gone on and above. And it's the smell and the infractions of just not taking care of it. I have nothing against the family. I would not mind even making the comment that several of these truck drivers are excellent drivers. I'm around construction all the time, and they take the time to slow down, to abide by everything, because I mow the road right next to, close to where this dump is, within a half a mile, right next to the highway. I've had several of them even go out around, wave, everything. But the dump is not being taken care of. And us as taxpayers, my taxes in the last 10 years have went up $1,000. What are my rights? And that's my only comment.
Sir, I have one question for you. You said, how long you been there?
33 years.
33 years. So
Actually, 50 years. I moved a mile up the road and built my house. I've lived there almost 56 years in August.
Okay, so
and I've been through
the
all
dump's
of them.
been there for how long?
The dump, okay, actually, this was a rock quarry in the 60s.
Okay.
And it actually in the 70s, I remember there was a lot of problem because they blasted the rock out of there.
Okay.
They took the layers of rock out. The reason it was closed from a rock quarry is because there was too many layers in between the larger rocks, which they're wasting a lot of that right now. I was understood they were going to take some out of there. Okay, then it did become the Easton landfill. The city of Easton, I think, owned it. And didn't they turn it over to Leavenworth County?
Okay.
And then from Leavenworth County, it went to John Tony Korpstein, which they ran a construction dump there. Then it went to Larkin Excavating, and the whole time Larkin Excavating ran it, there's building materials going into the dump. And I understand that. Whenever they fill it, then they should put dirt, then they should fill it, they should keep everything under control.
Okay. None of these problems were an issue before?
Never.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening, guys. My name is Howard Crook, and my wife and I, Nicole, live at 31871 223rd Street. We have a 10-acre tract, and then also there's about 200 acres behind that 8 years ago I went through all you plan zone back when Don White was a surveyor, and we had to plot and zone it for a subdivision. Because my grandfather's wish, who bought this farm in 1947, his wish was that his kids, his grandkids, his great-grandkids, that we could all have a piece of this farm. That was my wedding gift. My siblings was 5 acres of ground, but he wanted it to continue, so I spent the extra $8,000, to be honest, to plot that, and so it is a subdivision. Like I said, my grandfather purchased this place in 47. He's gone. My dad was raised there. Right now, there are 9 homes just within my family that border this dump pretty much. And the problem we've got, and you kind of touched on it right there, but you know, this has always been a rock quarry / dump. And I want to stress that because you brought up a really good point. We have never, ever been to one of these meetings to complain. And it's happening, whether they say it is or not. I'm retired. I'm home 24/7 almost. 20.9 semis might be before lunch. Okay? I'm home. I hear the Jake brakes going down the hill every day. So I don't believe that. I don't believe there's any documentation to prove that. So I'm home. I drive the school bus. When I pull out of the school at 10 after 7, there's already been 8 trucks go by before then. Drive a school bus with a load of kids and have some of them semis. Think about the accident we had at 7 Highway and 192, the young couple with their kids strapped in it. And you all know about it or have heard about it. That semi rear-ended that van, and they're lucky that all 4 of them walked away. Didn't even have a CDL. The guy that hit them. Trash truck. Point is, there's a lot to this, but it's got to stop, guys. It's a residential area. 8 o'clock at night, that's not suffice. How do you sit on your patio and listen to click, 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 beep, beep, beep at 8 o'clock at night? I had friends from Sedalia last year, and they're sitting there like, what in the heck is that? Well, that's our residence. That's what we do on our back patios. We sit here and we listen to this all night long. And at 8 o'clock, there's numerous times. There's messages of Mr. Culberson because I sent them to him 8:10, 8:15, 8:20. So anyway, I would really appreciate you guys considering ending this.
Thank you, sir. In opposition.
Good evening. My name's Kyle Smith. I live at 22476 Turner Road. I live right across the street from the daycare center. I'm very familiar with the issues that they have in their yard. I'm a 23-year vet from the Air Force, and I know all about rules and regulations, believe me. So, that being said, I'm not out here to tell anybody and feel sorry for anybody and their livelihood. I'm just trying to tell them, hey, live by the rules and regulations. I did for 23 years, and I'm still doing that. And the bottom line is, and I don't have a cool deck of slides to give you. I can give you this business card when I'm done, but the bottom line is the hours of operations. I can tell you right now that I have an Australian Shepherd that I throw a Frisbee to every night before she goes to bed. And sometimes that's at 10 o'clock, sometimes that's at 11 o'clock. And I've heard the beep, beep, beep and the clatter, clatter, clatter from the tractors that Mr. Crook just talked about. I've heard it as late as 10:30 at night. I'm not going to say that is that dump, but I'm guaranteeing it's coming from that area. All right. Traffic on 192 is absurd. Turner Road runs into 192, and I live the first house off the 192 on the left. And when those trucks go by, he must have been reading my mind or saw me taking notes, because the Jake brakes are live and well every day going through. And I don't know if there's a city ordinance right there or not, but they're coming through there, and it gives me, I can start taking notes of how many trucks go by. I don't know how many they are, but I work from home. I'm there every day, and I hear them all day long. Trash on my property. I get trash on my property all the time, and it's not sheetrock paper, it's not sawdust, it's not construction material. It's stuff like bags from Walmart. It's stuff like things that you would see in residential trash that is not construction material, okay? And I know good and well it's not coming from the nursery that's across the street. Fire hazards, there is a fire hazard there, and sometimes, you got to wonder if that's going to come across the hill and worry about your own property. I know he's talked about Blackstone Environmental. I wish those guys would come to my house and just sit there sometime and smell what I smell on a regular basis. And I can't believe that that's the nursery either. The one thing that nobody has really touched upon, and I'm concerned about the leaching into Stranger Creek, because I've heard that there might be native wildlife that's at a hazardous level from that leaching property up above in the dump area. Other than that, guys, I'm not trying to put you on trial, and I'm sorry that somebody else was tonight. You guys are doing a fine job, and I wish you'd just consider what we're all talking about tonight, because we really do want to see some change, if it just means they follow their own regulations.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Julie Eastburn. I live at 22562 Eastern Road. My husband and I built our house 35 years ago. Like my family has mentioned, we've never had a problem with the dump over there. But as we're having a family reunion for the Eastburn side, all my family on the other side was like, what is that smell? And it's the dump. We're sitting outside trying to enjoy something, and we smell the dump. I know that they're trying to say they're going by the SUP, but they've broken the law before on it. Why aren't they going to next time? If you pass this, I believe they will go back to what it has been the last 2 years. I hope you guys really think about what you're going to think and not table this. Don't put us through another 60 days of this. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have one question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's similar to what we asked the other individual, the smell.
Yes.
So when did you start noticing the smell? You've been out there for such a long time.
I mean, since they've been there. Last year, we'd ride our Ranger down by it, and I'd like, what is that smell? And my husband goes, that's the dump. I've been around construction all my life, and I know what construction smells like. That doesn't smell like construction. So you're outside. We had the fire. We had the smoke. We have all that smell.
So prior to 2019, it wasn't a problem?
No. No.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition?
Good evening, gentlemen. Matthew Snyder, live at 22247 Turner Road, 500 meters directly east of the landfill where it currently is. mine's more of an informational as well as an opposition. However, what you should also be told is starting in March of 2020, every Sunday and Wednesday night, there's been a smell of burning trash. Every Sunday and Wednesday night. I spent 27 months in Iraq, 12 in Afghanistan. I know exactly what it smells like. It's paper, mostly plastics, paint, as well as some food and a little bit of wood. I've been around that many burning fires, trust me. But I also believe that would come into factor of when your inspections also were probably Monday and Thursday mornings. But you should know that Sunday night and Wednesday night there have been the smell of burning fire from a trash pit of some sort. Now, it wasn't enough to create a large smoke plume. It was little fires, but I think that somebody in the area has been gradually reducing their trash footprint that way. And being as the dump is the only place in the area that has that kind of resource to do, I would say that amount of trash to do that, any residential area a residential house wouldn't be able to provide that much trash to burn twice a week. So, for your information, I can't prove any of it because it's at 8, 9 o'clock at night and you can't really see any of it. But for your consideration, gentlemen, thank you much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, sir, if you want to speak in opposition, come on up.
Well, I don't. I just want to say something.
Come on up. You got 3 minutes.
My name is Gary Green. I live at 210 North 4th Street, Edwardsville, Kansas. I work with Sean and the group. Christy is my daughter. Sean is my son-in-law. And I would like to say right here in front of everybody that they have no intention of any type of hurting anybody's rights or hurting anybody in the area. They want to do as much as they can to help the area. They're trying to be good neighbors. They've got a business that is not very nice for an area simply because no one wants a dump near them. It doesn't matter where you put a dump. No one wants it there. With that said, it was a pre-existing dump, and no one, we didn't expect any kind of opposition to it. But with that said, we do respect their opinions, and we do respect what's bothering them with this deal. And I actually went out, and for 3 weeks, I followed trucks up that road, and I made them slow down. I actually said, you're going to drive 45 miles an hour in and out of here, or you're not coming back. We had them tarred, every load, in and out. Now, some folks have seen trucks without tarps on them, and I absolutely believe they did see them. But they didn't come to our dump. We've got videos of trucks entering the dump that have been, we don't turn them away the first time, but we dang sure tell them about it, and we express that if you don't do it by the rules, you're not coming back. They're not even our trucks. We got 2 trucks, and these trucks belong to other outfits. And they come in, we try to control it, and we try to do what's best for the community. And I've spoken to a lot of folks that spoke here tonight, and I respect them. I absolutely respect their opinion, and I expect what they're upset about. I really do. But I want to tell you, this is not an easy situation for them or for us or for you guys. And I want to say thank you for considering it, and I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate our neighbors. And I hope everybody understands we're all friends. We're not opposing each other. We have different opinions, and we're trying to get through this the best way we can. And it's going to take work, hard work, and consideration by everybody. And I hope everybody understands that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question for you, sir. Can you give me your definition of a tarp?
Actually, debris tarps are a little different than sand tarps. Sand tarps go kind of down the middle. Debris tarps usually go right to the edge, and they're flopped over. Some trucks that come in do have sand tarps on them, and we ask them, make sure you don't fill that thing up so you're not spilling on the highway. The other thing I would also like to say, if you bear with me just a minute, I have picked up trash till I'm blue in the face. I don't like it any more than anybody else does. And when them boys lose trash out of them trucks, I'm on them. Because my wife, who isn't here tonight, and I spend a lot of Saturdays picking up trash. And we do it because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Evening. My name's Tom Bedell. I live at 23855 Easton Road, and I just bought a place out here a year ago, and one of my concerns is I didn't know the dump was there when I bought the property. I have a little over 5 acres. I didn't know the dump was there. However, I have to drive through Easton, and I'm a new neighbor. And I want to participate in my community and try to be an asset to them and try to get involved in, meeting fellow neighbors in the small town. I believe it's a small community, and from what I'm gathering from watching some of the YouTube videos of the committee meetings and what's going on in my new community to me and my family is this situation, I guess. So first and foremost, I have healthy concerns of they've bought additional property, where it's going to go if they're not able to conform to the regulations, the SUP that they said they're going to. I have concerns about if it expands. I do smell the smells when I drive through it, when I'm going through in and out of Easton, so I can confirm that smell. I have noticed a fire out there, so I was concerned for the neighbors. I don't know what time early in the morning it was, so that was a concern of mine. So I felt like if I don't come here and voice my opinion, I don't have I can't complain about it. So here I am. So thank you for hearing me, and I wanted to support my neighbors. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi, I'm Nicole Crook. I live at 31871. I'm Howard Crook's wife, 223rd Street. We are not bad people. We are not trying to make pointless complaints. We have no trouble with someone earning $1. That's what we do. We work, we earn money. That's how you live your life. That being said, it is a problem within our neighborhood, the amount of the trash, the smell, everything that we've all talked about. We appreciate the efforts that they've made to pick up that trash. How long will the gentleman be able to sustain that? I mean, for the next 10 years? For however long the landfill is operating? We have real concerns as taxpayers. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you will consider the long list ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I'm James Berry. I live at 34872 North 187th Street. And I know all these people out here pretty much. I ate lunch with a bunch of them. I know the people that live all along that road from 73 Highway all the way down into Easton. My kids grew up with their kids. They're all good, God-fearing people. And I respect all of them. What I don't think people have touched on is when John Larkin ran that as a dump, he might have done 20 trucks a week. And I think when they came in wanting to reopen it as a dump, people assumed that's what was going to happen. And I think that's what the county commissioners thought. It's going to be what Larkin did. These guys are running a small construction company. They're going to do the same kind of thing. The volume of trucks is where the problem, in my mind, came into play. It's just you're talking apples and oranges. John Larkin had 20 trucks a week, maybe. They're running 20 trucks before lunch, or somewhere in that neighborhood. So you're doing all what he would do in a week, you're doing it in one day. So they're taking in a lot more of the construction / when I tear a house down, whatever's in it's in it. But that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners? We heard a lot of stuff today.
Well, I have one question, and it's for the lady there in the maroon shirt, because I recognize her, and I believe she's on the Easton City Council. Is that right, Miss Hadley? And I heard, just setting up the hilltop, eating breakfast yesterday, that the landfill was trying to get Easton to annex the landfill so we would have no say-so over what goes on. Has that been brought to the Easton City Council?
It has been brought to the Easton City Council, but I don't know if that's the reasoning why.
Okay.
To be honest, they're thinking of taxes and making money off of it. That's what was brought to us.
Okay. And
all right. Any other questions or comments? Like I said, we heard a lot of stuff, and we got a lot of material to read.
Crystal, so I went back on the minutes of was April or May of 19 when they came to us with the new owners, and it was for special use permit for a landfill and extraction of raw materials for C&D landfill and rock quarry. And unfortunately, we didn't film those meetings back then. But I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the talk and stuff was about the quarry and blasting and some of the neighbors' concerns on that. Am I correct on that?
Commissioner Denny, I actually was pleased to find that we were recording Planning Commission meetings at that time. And I had the pleasure of rewatching that Planning Commission meeting recently. And I will tell you that there was very brief conversation about it being blasting. There was one person who came and spoke about it. It wasn't in opposition or for it. It's just she had a couple of questions. What was presented to the Planning Commission at that time felt that it was in line with what had been happening and made a recommendation of approval that the Board of County Commissioners supported.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
I guess I do have a question for you, Crystal. If you get the information that you're requesting, have been requesting, or if it's already been presented to you today, is there any reason why we can't tie this up at our next meeting?
Commissioner, I have not received it may have been emailed to me. I have not had an opportunity to go through and take a look at that. our next meeting is 5 weeks from today. Certainly, I would leave it, the applicants are requesting 60 days. I would leave it to the Planning Commission. They gave you a lot of information, which I assume I also have a copy of. The Planning Commission feels that they're able to get through that over the next 5 weeks, then certainly you can continue this to the July meeting, but it is substantial information, it sounds like.
Well, I think we need to definitely table it, but I think a month is enough. I think this has gone on long enough, and we need to come to some kind of conclusion by then, because you still got another month for the commissioners to hear it.
Correct. It would be, typically speaking, it would be 3 weeks after the Planning Commission. So
yeah, I think we surely should get over this information in 5 weeks and see if there's anything else that comes from them, and you can get anything that you got together by the next meeting. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I could, if the board wishes to, and it's certainly this commission's prerogative to continue this matter if it's appropriate, and given the volume of material that's been presented to you, fully understanding the concern of these folks at the situation, tabling it till your July meeting would probably be appropriate, but I'd also suggest if any of you, while you review this material, have additional questions or feel additional information would be appropriate for your consideration, please forward those requests to Crystal. They can be forwarded on to the operator, and we'll try to have that information to you in time for you to digest it and consider it in time for your July meeting.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. You ever have trouble communicating with Crystal or staff? So.
Motion to that effect.
To table it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll need a motion to table it if that's what you want to do.
I believe we table it for 30 days. I don't think we need to go 60. I think we've kind of heard from the community, but I would like to read everything that they've presented to us. I would like to maybe see an accurate truck count. If somebody wants to videotape that and send it to somebody, if we're running 40, 50 trucks a day, then that's a direct violation. If they're 25, maybe 28, then. But I definitely think we need more information, but I don't think they need 60 days.
No, I don't think so either. I think we need to end this. So we'll take a motion. No, ma'am, we closed the public hearing.
Just really clarification in that you were going to ask her questions to go to the counselor. I would also suggest if you have questions about the residents of the county that you would like to have more information, that you could even maybe fill those questions ahead of time.
Okay, all right. Do I have a motion?
Okay. In the matter of case number DV 22-067, after hearing testimony, staff report, and recently acquired information, I make a motion to continue this hearing to another date, which will be the July meeting.
July 13th.
Okay, thank you. July 13th meeting.
July 13th.
2022.
I'll second that.
And who was that?
Robert.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table DEV 22-067 special use permit termination for flatland excavating to the July 13th meeting. Is there any further discussion? You are voting to table. Mark Denny.
Yes.
Alan Stork.
Yes.
Jaden Bailey.
Yes.
Marcus Major.
Yes.
It took him a while to learn my name.
He's going to call me minor.
It's going to take me about 2 meetings, and then I'll have it right down. Rocky Hempel.
Yes.
Robert Owens.
Yes.
Tom Dials.
Yes.
Jeff Spink.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0 to table We will be hearing this on July 13th meeting again. Is there anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, we are adjourned.